Okay everyone, so what we're going to look at today is quick intro to Maya. We'll probably do a few quick intros to Maya, but what I wanted to look at today is first how to move around, how to load in orthographic images and start modeling characters. So later on, when you're in the Cert 3, we actually start looking at how you can do, character models, like really sort of advanced stuff with rigs and everything, but you'll notice that we've got to do a fair bit of drawing. So me and Toby have been talking and saying that, the sooner we can get you guys comfortable with drawing, the sooner we can get you guys sort of like used to being able to just do drawovers and things like that, the better it'll be later on when you're starting to do tasks in the Cert 2. Because here's an example of some of the stuff that you have to do in the Cert 2. So you do have to do a fair bit of drawing. So it doesn't have to be great drawings. It just has to be something that we can use, particularly as orthographics, in order to be able to sort of tell a story and to problem solve around when we're trying to think about, okay, how would we model these things? Like, how do I get this sort of shape here of a rowboat as a 3D model? And the answer is we use something like this, which is called an orthographic, where we have a top, side, and front view that we can then load into Maya and then start modeling and using as a guide. So it's kind of like tracing paper. If you've ever tried to draw something really complicated and you just use tracing paper, it's kind of like that. Okay, so today we're just going to practice with an already existing orthographic that I've put together. So previously people have tried modeling Max, and what they've probably noticed as they're trying to model Max is that this image that we've been given isn't perfectly symmetrical, and it can be sometimes really hard to put the shapes in, because you can see here his leg here is one size and then on the other side it's a completely different size. And this is fine for a children's 2D book, but for us when we're 3D modeling, we'd want something a little bit more solid. So if you check up on the Discord, you'll notice that I've put up two images here, these orthographic images. They're not quite sort of lined up, but those should do, just to give us an idea about what's happening on the side. And later on I want to go through, okay, how can we actually do these draw overs for a character and then line them up so we have a side view of that character as well. Okay, so but that'll be a bit later. First I just wanted to show you how you can get those orthographics in and then use them inside of Maya. So if you've opened up Maya, the first thing we're going to want to do is create a project. So we've got a project, and that will bring up this window here. You want to give it a new name and name it there, and it will create all these folders. And these folders become very important when you're using orthographic images and textures. So once that's created, you then need to also set that project. So mine is called JeffMax, so I need to set that JeffMax project. So now, if I go down to this view here, so we have this thing here called the viewport. To move around this viewport, we just roll the mouse wheel up to zoom in and out. Then we hold down the left Alt key and then left click and drag to move around. Or if you've got a mouse that's sort of capable of that, you can hotkey the Alt key to that key and move it around. You can also go up here to View, Camera Tools, and click here on this little dotted line to tear that off, and then left click and drag to use whichever tool you have selected, like that. So that's how you move around this 3D view space here. But you also have these other options here. This is for the main view, and this is for what's known as a quad view. Quad view is good because it gives us these orthographic views, which means if we load a picture into here, we can then model over the top of it. So we'll do that now. We'll just go up to View, Image Plane, and Import Image. And you can see in here, I've already got my images here. Now, if you don't have those images in that folder, what you'll need to do is go to Discord or wherever you've downloaded those folders from, go to your Maya projects, which for many people will be inside of the Documents, Maya, and Projects folder. But for me, I've got it on my Google Drive here. So you then open that up and go into Source Images, not images, but Source Images. And then you just copy and paste them into here. So that's where they are right there. And so now I can go to View, go to Image Plane, and Import Image. So each of these boxes has their own menu up here of which you can change. So you can change whether it's wireframe or solid, or whether it has lighting or not. But the main thing that we're changing here is we're actually putting in something into the view. So we're going to go Image Plane, Import Image, and go to Front, because this is the front orthographic. That's what I'm going to put in there. And then I'm going to go to the side view and go View, Image Plane, Import Image, Side. Now I'm going to leave both of them there, and the reason that I leave both of them there just to start with is I can now see whether they line up or not. And as you can see, they don't quite line up. so I might have to make a few adjustments to this. So I can left click on anything inside this 3D space to select it, and I can then move it with this widget. So you can move, rotate, or scale using these widgets on the side, or by pressing W, E, and R. So I'm going to click on this one here on the side and then move that up slightly so that the head and feet and everything line up. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just needs to be as close to level as I can get it. Now that I've done that, I'm going to actually move this out to the side here and him out to the side here, so that now if I bring in a shape, I can see that in the background to model over the top of it, but I can also still move things in the foreground. So we'll get to creating shapes in a second. The other thing I'm going to do, and this is very important when you're working with characters, especially if you're going to rig them later, is I always put the feet on the bottom of this grid here. So you can make the grid disappear and appear by clicking on this icon here, but especially when we're working with IKs and gravity, that sort of point there is what's known as the 0 point. So we don't want our character below that 0 point. Cool. So now that I've got these guides in, let's talk about how we can get a shape in. So these shapes here, if you are in modeling, should be under this tab Poly, and you can basically bring in all these kinds of shapes here. And then we can use these tools on the side here to just reshape our character, or just the shapes that go with the character. So you can have a go at just trying to build almost like a snowman version of this character if you wanted to. Now I'm doing a very basic sort of thing here. Later on I'll show you how you can do a more complex sort of shape. But just for now, let's just have a look at the limitations of the sphere, because it's our first sort of model here and everything. As you can see, I'm using both the front and the side view to kind of get an idea about how I want this to be, where I want things to line up. And so what I'm creating here, and it comes up in the other sort of units in both certificates, is a primitive blockout. So I'm not actually trying to get a perfect line here. I'm not using any of the other more advanced tools like extrude or reshape or anything. I'm just basically using the primitive models that I'm supplied with here to just flesh out an idea about what this character should be, because it's really fast and it stops me from having to lose a lot of time only to discover that nah, the proportions are wrong, I need to go back to the drawing board. I've made a mistake in the orthographics here, and you can see it. I've made the feet long here, but I haven't actually followed it through on there, so I've got to decide which way I want the feet to face. I actually kind of want them facing forward, so I'm going to ignore what I've put down here, because again I've gone with what the comic has rather than thinking about what the other side would have. So that's how I can just do that. Now to save me time, because character's symmetrical, what I can also do is I can press either duplicate, which is Control D, or Shift D, but I'm just going to go Control D to duplicate these shapes. So if I hold down Shift button, I can select multiple meshes, and I'm going to go Control D and then move that across there, just so that I can get an idea of that. And just to finish off this block out, let's do that. So you'll notice that I've actually got the arm separate, and the reason for that is because it's very hard to model it over the top of other things. But if I have it here and I model it like that, then I can sort of move it back after I've finished modeling it. And then I can rotate it once I've finished modeling it here as well. So if you're brand new to Maya and you haven't had anything yet that you've done, this is a very good exercise just for getting used to moving around the 3D viewport and also moving things about. Let's move that to here. And his arm is a bit thin on this side compared to what so I might again break the orthographic there a bit. Cool. So that's there. I could go Control D to duplicate, and then I'm just going to mirror it. So let's talk about the channel box. So far we've just been eyeballing it and moving things around, but all of these things have coordinates. So if you click on this little pizza stack thing looking here in the corner, this thing over here is kind of all of the things that you're doing here, but they've got numerical values. So it might be 0 on the X translate because this has not moved from its X position, but all these other ones have numbers to them as well. So what I can actually do when I have multiple selected is if I say, because this is on the x-axis, because that right there is the x-axis, if I change this scale here to minus, then I think I need to combine that first, and then then it will flip it over. It didn't because I had multiple objects selected with different coordinates, but if I combine them as I did there, that zeroes them out and puts them back to 1, then I could do that there. Okay, so as we can see, it's, you know, at least starting to look like a character. It's not great because I've kind of pushed as far as I can just using the primitive shapes. But if you just want to do this as a quick exercise first, not worrying if it's all completely up to the sort of scale that we have here, just getting used to moving things about. Then in the next video what we'll look at is a few different tools that we can use to use cubes instead of spheres to get better looking shapes that are more closely related to these character shapes here. Okay, so just give that as an exercise and we will see you back after that.